Hi, my name is Brandon, and today I'm going to show you how to repair a flat tire on your bicycle. Step 1 is going to be putting the chain in the appropriate gear to give you room to work and remove the wheel. What we're going to do is we're going to put it in the smallest gear on both the front and the rear derailleur, giving us ample working room. In this system we have a through axle, requires our trusty multi-tool. And we're simply going to unscrew this threaded bolt. Once unscrewed, simply slide the bolt out and let the wheel fall as it may. I'm going to pull the derailleur cage away from the bicycle, allowing ample room to remove the wheel from the chain and derailleur. Now we can change our flag. Removing the dust cap and valve washer, I'll grab my tire lever. Going to insert it under the bead of the tire and pull that over the rim. After that, I'm simply going to slide the lever around the edge of the tire, all the way around to remove the tire bead from the rim. Carefully reaching into the tire, can grab our tube, pull it out of the tire. Lastly, pushing the valve stem through the wheel. We now have our punctured tube. I'm going to inflate my tube just enough so that I can identify the cause of the puncture. I might need to listen for it. On certain occasions I might need to put it under water to look for bubbles. In this case, we found a small hole here. The shape of this hole tells me it might be a piece of glass, something square, maybe a piece of metal. Now that we know the culprit, we can search very carefully by running our fingers on the inside of the tire to see if we can identify and remove that debris. And wouldn't you know it, we have a small piece of glass. When you're removing debris like this, just be very careful that you don't injure yourself. You can see that here's the original hole in the tire, but the tire itself is fine. We're just going to be replacing the tube. I'll continue to inspect the rest of the tire, considering that it's open and off, just to be thorough. What we're going to do is we're going to use a new tube. The way we decide what type of tube to use is dictated by the tire itself. This tire is a specialized Nimbus in size 700, that's the circumference of the tire, by 32C, that's 32 millimeters wide. This tube uses a Presto valve, and this is also dictated by the wheel. We don't have a choice on this, it's the way it was designed. When we use a Presto valve, we want to make sure to open the valve to allow that actuation. I'm going to use my pump again, and its appropriate valve type, to add just enough air to give this tube some shape. With our fresh tube, I'm going to start by taking my valve, and I identify my valve hole, start by inserting the tube valve, and start to insert the tube into the tire. I'm simply walking around the tire, inserting the tube, trying to seat it as deeply into the tire as I can. From there, starting at the valve, and reseat the bead of the tire that we removed, simply by pushing our thumbs down and allowing the bead to fall into the rim. You can see here that the tube is trying to escape. Be mindful of this. We don't want to pinch the tube in between the wheel and the tire. When we reach a point where the tension of the tire bead is too great to simply push it into the wheel, there are two methods of action. We can grab one of the wheel spokes and use our thumbs to force the bead over the wheel. If this is difficult or strenuous, we can reach for our tire lever and very carefully insert it backwards. All I'm doing is using the tire lever backwards to help me relieve some of that tension and get the bead in the wheel. Our tire is now back on with a fresh tube inside. We're going to inspect our own work. by pushing back the bead of the tire and making sure that we don't see the tube pinched in between these two surfaces. It's really easy to identify because we can see the tape on the rim beneath. This is just to make sure that when we add our desired pressure, we don't pinch the new tube in between and create another flat. At this point, it's time to add pressure. Again, just like it showed us our size, we can inspect the tire and look for a recommended pressure rating. This one here shows a minimum pressure of 50 pounds of pressure, PSI, but we recommend 75 to 100. The choice is yours in that range. A lower pressure is going to provide more suspension-like qualities. It's going to soften the ride, but it's a little bit more susceptible to puncture, can easily swallow debris. Whereas a higher pressure tire will be easier to roll, more efficient to pedal, but you're going to feel every nook and cranny of the ground. Stay within the recommended range, but experiment to your liking. I'll take my pump. You can use your CO2 compressor, floor pump at home if you have one. When we've reached our desired pressure, we're going to remove our pump. We're going to close our valve. Reinstall our valve washer. And if desired, our dust cap. When inserting the wheel, we're going to pull the derailleur cage back from the bike, laying the chain on top of the cassette. In a disc brake system like this, I'm simply aligning the rotor in between the brake pads, pulling the wheel up into the frame. I can reinsert my through axle and screw it down securely. After we've secured our through axle and the wheel is back on our bike, we're going to put the gears back to where we started, placing the chain in its appropriate ratio. Using the shifters, we'll shift up in the front and down in the rear. And we're all done here. I'll see you guys on the trails.